sheets are due now.
The following program was videotaped earlier by special permission of CBS for presentation at this time.
This is a CBS News special report on the Middle East. War on two fronts. Reporting from New York, here is CBS News correspondent Dan Rather.
Good evening. It's morning in the Middle East, the third morning of Israel's biggest military push ever into Lebanon. Never in the long years of murderous antagonism between Israel and the PLO have Israeli soldiers driven so far inside Lebanon to seek out PLO bases. Some advanced Israeli units now reported only 15 miles south of Beirut. That would place them 35 miles from the Israeli border. Israel originally said it wanted to push the PLO guerrillas back only 25 miles to end their shelling of northern Israel. But now one official says we may find ourselves beyond that.
Early today, Israeli warplanes supporting the troops hit Beirut. They bombed PLO refugee camps, and it's reported they badly damaged the headquarters of PLO chief Yasser Arafat. As the aircraft pressed their attack, Israeli tanks rolled northward. They were not unimpeded. Palestinians in nearby hills opened up with heavy gunfire, but eventually were turned back. This column was only part of the Israeli advance. As many as 20,000 troops were formed up in three separate columns. Israel says the westernmost column to this hour has captured the PLO base town of Tyre, has the next town up the coast, Sidon, surrounded, and is moving farther north toward Beirut. Troops of the middle column, after hand-to-hand fighting, seized the Beaufort Castle, a mountain stronghold that stood as the very symbol of PLO resistance. Soldiers of this column also took two other strongholds, those of Nabatea and Hasbaya. The easternmost column is a cause for concern. This force is moving near the Bekaa Valley, which is controlled by Syrian troops. Whether these Syrians join the battle in force cannot be predicted. The PLO says Israel is exaggerating its combat claims, that its guerrillas are making the attackers pay dearly. That is not the assessment in Israel, as we hear now from Bob Fall.
In just 2 days, this Israeli invasion force has either captured or laid siege to all major PLO bases in southern Lebanon. And the Begin government says it will keep sending armored units across the border and keep pounding away with heavy artillery until it drives the terrorists so far into Lebanon that they can no longer shell Israel's border settlements. Israel's chief of staff said tonight that this operation has gone twice as fast as expected. From the port city of Tyre, the inland market town of Nabatea, to the foothills of the Golan Heights, PLO strongholds have been hammered. And even the once impregnable fortress known as the Beaufort Castle fell to Israel this time in just 24 hours. One prominent Israeli military analyst says the PLO has lost so much so fast that its military structure could collapse within the next few days. Intervention by Syria's 30,000 soldiers stationed in Lebanon could prevent that, and the Syrian command is talking tough. But military planners here think that Syria is merely paying lip service to the Arab cause, and that given its internal political problems, Syria is less likely to confront Israel. Israel's losses have not been disclosed. There is reason to believe that casualties are higher than anticipated, but a confident prime minister who today visited his prize catch of the Beaufort Castle seems to be in the driver's seat, seems to be creating a military reality so entrenched and one-sided that no diplomatic effort can undo it. Bob Fall, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
In spite of what Israeli military planners see as Syrian reluctance to intervene, the threat exists that Damascus may be forced to act. Syria's entrance into the fray could be triggered by several things, but analysts believe that the key spark would be a menacing Israeli movement into Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, which Syria has staked out as its territory. Syria also could be forced to intervene if it appeared the PLO's military future was in complete jeopardy, or if it appeared that Israel was moving into southern Lebanon to stay. Now, what Syria will do, and what, if anything, the Soviet Union does, are two of the most important unanswered questions about the new Israeli invasion.
It'll never work.
We're testing whether Tegrin can keep Lisa's dandruff under control for 3 days. Okay, Lisa, give it the Tegrin shake.
Looks terrific. But it's only 1 day.
Tegrin shake, day 2, Lisa.
Wow, Tegrin's on the job. But there's tomorrow.
Day 3. Let's see that Tegrin shake.
Hey, I'm really impressed. Tegrin, I'm sorry I doubted you.
Try Tegrin. It works.
Really works.
Between shampoos.
And cut! Print it. With my job, I can't afford to get tense from too much caffeine, so a friend told me something that made good sense.
Ah, got time for a coffee break?
Here he is. He told me about Sanka brand decaffeinated coffee.
I told him Sanka's 100% real coffee.
That is good.
And 97% caffeine-free.
That's even better.
Sanka decaffeinated coffee. Good coffee that makes good sense.
As with most conflicts in the world today, the United States is already being drawn into the dispute into southern Lebanon. Washington has ordered a task force with 1,800 Marines aboard to head for the battle zone in case evacuation of the over 4,000 Americans in the area should become necessary. And in shelling today, at least 2 rockets hit the American embassy in Beirut. Neither side claimed responsibility for the attack. There was some damage, but no injuries, and the State Department ordered about 30 members of the embassy staff to leave the country. However, American involvement in the conflict is bound to be more than just broken windows in an embassy. If history is any guide, Bob Simon suggests this is simply another step along what has been a very long, complicated, and bloody road.
The full weight of Israeli armor thrusts into southern Lebanon. Declared objective to root out the Palestinian bases which have been terrorizing northern Israeli settlements. The date, March 14, 1978, more than 4 years ago. One more chapter in the tragic epic called the Palestinian Problem, an epic which is still being written tonight. The current phase of the struggle dates back to 1970, when King Hussein, threatened by the growing power of the PLO in Jordan, unleashed his army against the Palestinians, forcing thousands into Lebanon. By 1975, the PLO had become strong enough in Lebanon to challenge the ruling Christians. A bloody civil war which destroyed the fabric of the nation was only halted when the Syrian army intervened, forcing most of the Palestinians into the southern part of the country. From there, they launched raids into Israel, and Israel retaliated. Finally, with the invasion of 1978. Israeli forces withdrew after 3 months, leaving behind a weak UN peacekeeping force and a Christian-controlled buffer zone 6 miles deep. From the Israeli point of view, not deep enough. Later that year, the Camp David Accords approached the problem by promising autonomy, self-rule to the Palestinians living on the Israeli-occupied West Bank and Gaza. But the negotiations never really went anywhere. Violence on the West Bank and across the Israeli border with Lebanon continued. Last July, Israel struck again, bombing PLO headquarters in Beirut, killing hundreds of civilians. A week later, U.S. Special Envoy Philip Habib arranged a ceasefire which was never more than tenuous, and which was obliterated on Sunday when Israel again launched its forces across the border. Former U.S. Special Ambassador Saul Linowitz says the Reagan administration has neglected the Middle East and is therefore partly to blame for this latest outbreak.
You can't maintain this kind of a tense situation eternally unless you are at the same time working constructively and with determination to find a way to resolve the underlying issue. Once progress was no longer being made in the autonomy negotiations, once we had brought about the ceasefire, but then let it alone to simmer. Once you knew that the missiles were going to remain there and were not being removed. In a sense, there was a Greek tragedy aspect to this. How long could things remain quiet while forces were building on both sides and each was looking for the right time to start?
There seems little doubt tonight that Israel will succeed in moving the Palestinians further back into Lebanon. The Israeli problem is that it cannot make them disappear. Bob Simon, CBS News, Washington.
Throughout the night, Palestinian gunners have continued to pound northern Israel with artillery fire. Meanwhile, the president's special Mideast envoy, Philip Habib, returned to Israel today. The first step, Doug Tennell reports, in an attempt to stitch back together the fragile peace so rudely shattered by Sunday's guns.
For Israelis, the American-sponsored ceasefire Philip Habib negotiated a year ago is history. Even as President Reagan's special envoy met with Menachem Begin today, Israeli troops were redrawing the map of southern Lebanon once again. The American ambassador to Israel had delivered an 11th-hour appeal to Begin on Sunday morning, asking him not to invade. But that appeal went unheeded. Begin told the Americans Israel does not covet a single inch of Lebanese territory, that it wants a peace treaty with an independent Lebanon, but that Israelis must defend themselves. The government ultimately hopes its troops can carve out a buffer zone deep enough to put the settlements of northern Israel out of the range of PLO rockets and artillery. Then officials say a peacekeeping force more potent than the 7,000 men of UNIFIL must patrol the buffer zone once Israeli tanks withdraw. In the short term, the Israelis want to trap the guerrillas in pockets from which there is no escape, so that unlike the invasion of 4 years ago, the guerrillas cannot simply just withdraw and start fighting again.
I think they'll have very great difficulty in getting any of their heavy equipment out, like their tanks and their guns.
Is it possible that the Syrians will become involved in the fighting?
I think the answer to that depends how quickly the Israelis will complete their operation of moving north 40 kilometers north of the present line. If they do it very rapidly, I think that the Syrians would like an excuse not to come in.
A buoyant Defense Minister Sharon briefed Habib on the new military realities in southern Lebanon, Israel's message to the Reagan administration, back to the diplomatic drawing board. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Jerusalem.
The Israeli invasion of Lebanon is casting a long shadow over President Reagan's grand tour of Europe, including his brief visit to the Vatican, where he and the Pope took up the latest Mideast crisis.
Well, we discussed Lebanon, and I'm sure both of us expressed our hopes that there can be a peaceful settlement there. I explained to him that Ambassador Habib is on his way.
Late today, Secretary of State Haig, who is staying with the president as the Queen's guest at Windsor Castle, received Ambassador Habib's telephoned report. Haig and other U.S. officials have expressed fear since the fighting broke out in Lebanon that the Israelis and Syrian forces in Lebanon might get directly involved. The Syrians could quickly widen the war to other fronts. Syria is also allied with Iran in its current war with Iraq, while Israel's neighbor Jordan supports Iraq. As a result, war threatens to erupt at several points in the Mideast. There is so far only one bright spot in this complex and gloomy picture. Word from Egypt's President Mubarak to President Reagan that the Egyptians will stand by their Camp David peace treaty with Israel. But the Egyptians, like almost everyone else in the volatile Mideast, are urging the United States to lean hard on Israel to stop its assault and get its troops out of Lebanon. Unfortunately, although the U.S. government is leaning, it is so far having very little effect on the determined Israelis. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News, London.
Step ahead. The moist dewiness of the islands, seen in the ageless skin of its women, is captured in every drop of the mysterious beauty fluid known as oil of Olay. As tropical oil and silken emollients harmonize with your skin's own natural fluids, a soft, luminous look emerges, and a coveted secret of timeless beauty becomes yours. Discover the mystery of Oil of Olay. It can help you look younger, too.
For nearly 2 years, another war has been raging in the Middle East, one that has claimed many thousands of lives. The implications of this war between Iran and Iraq could prove to be even greater than those of the fight between Israel and the PLO. Yet, for a number of reasons, so far as many of us in the West are concerned, This war might as well be happening on another planet. When the first shots were fired, Iraq seemed unstoppable. But now, to no little amazement and much apprehension, Iran has turned the tables. Bill Moyers has just spent a week in Iran, and he reports that there's no secret to its newfound success.
This is the other war that has the Middle East on edge. Here it is not a war of Jew against Arab, but Muslim against Muslim, Iraq against Iran. 20 months ago, Iraq invaded Iran to seize control of a disputed waterway at the head of the Persian Gulf. The Iranians think Iraq's President Saddam Hussein also intended to annex this western region of Iran and turn it into a separate state. The Arab oil countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain, have put up some $20 billion to support Iraq. They saw it as a way to diminish the stature of Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini. They believe he wants to inspire an Islamic revolution among the fundamentalist Muslims in their own countries who look to the Ayatollah for spiritual guidance. Slice a chunk of Iran off the map, it was said, and you cut the Ayatollah Khomeini down to size. It backfired. Nothing since their hatred of the Shah has united the Iranians as much as this destruction brought on by the Iraqi invasion. It has stirred even further the Ayatollah's dreams for a resurgence of Islam, and it has given the Iranians one more reason to hate America. The religious commissars assigned to their units tell these soldiers that America is the great Satan who helped the Shah from Iran its treasure and traditions. They even accuse the U.S. of inspiring the Iraqi invasion, a last-ditch effort by Jimmy Carter, they say, to thwart the revolution and free the hostages back in 1980. So all the way to the front, they will lapse into the official slogan, "Down with America, death to America," even atop one of the many Soviet-made tanks the Iraqis used against them. They perform on cue, more from instruction than from personal disposition. Their immediate enemy they know to be the Iraqi invader at the end of this road. There has been a ferocity to their fighting, born of holy enmity that goes back 1,000 years, when heirs of the Prophet Muhammad fought to decide the succession. No one knows how many men have died in this latest outbreak of that ancient hostility. Estimates range from 50,000 to twice that many, to say nothing of all the innocent bystanders buried in the rubble. This was once a village of 12,000 people. Iran says the Iraqis leveled it. A few refugees still fish the stream, but no one lives here anymore. An officer says it will take a long time to forget. One generation's war is another's poisoned memory.
It's a bad memory for the children that they can't come back to the city and see this destroying area.
For a year and a half, the war went badly for Iran. The army had been purged by the Islamic Revolution of experienced officers loyal to the Shah. A new generation of colonels had to learn war the hard way.
We will continue the fighting for Islam.
They have turned that faith into a military asset with the help of an irregular force of young Islamic believers known as Revolutionary Guards. Teenagers, actually, loyal to the clergy who have taught them that Allah honors martyrs. Wearing combat fatigues and tennis shoes, they have hurled themselves across the minefields toward the Iraqi trenches. So it is that Iranian troops have fought their way back to the city from which they once retreated, the port city of Khorramshahr, held by the Iraqis since the first month of the war. Now it is the Iraqis who must retreat back to their own soil. This is the prize, all that remains of a city of 200,000 people. It's not likely this can be rebuilt, can it?
No, it is impossible.
Was it worth it? I mean, you paid a big price.
Yes. At any way, we are ready to pay more than that for our freedom. It's not important.
If you want to know what this has to do with us, with the rest of the world, there's your answer. The Ayatollah says we want to revive Islam, and no one in this country doubts that he means it. Khomeini and his true believers say these ruins must be avenged. They say Iraq's president must be punished, his regime replaced by one true to Islam. The Arab countries that have supported him must pay for their crimes too. These are the words of the Ayatollah. O giant ocean of Muslims, raise your thunderous voices and crush the enemies of humanity. It is a voice heard these days across the troubled Persian Gulf.
Denture wearers speak out about denture adhesives.
Hate them all.
I love mine.
What? Pastes are gooey and powders are gritty.
Not my adhesive. I use liquid Dentrol, the first liquid denture adhesive.
A liquid?
You bet. Dentrol is smooth without all that goo and grit, and it flows on in a thin stream that holds so comfortably you almost forget you're wearing dentures. Now what do you have to say?
I'm in love with liquid Dentrol denture adhesive.
For a comfortable hold.
Nick, I need help.
Sure.
What should I use to clean my bathroom?
Fantastic.
But that's my kitchen cleaner. What about my bath?
Look, as fast and easy as Fantastic cleans your kitchen, it'll clean your bath.
Nick's right. Fantastic cuts right through grease, dirt, and soap scum. My whole bathroom sparkles. Nick, Fantastic is super in the bathroom.
Fantastic. What it does for your kitchen, it'll do for your bath.
After finishing up his work in Iran, Bill Moyers flew on to West Germany. President Reagan will be in Bonn later this week for a NATO summit. Bill is up very early to talk with us. Bill, on the basis of where you've been and what you've seen, why are these wars so tenacious as well as lethal, so hard to end as well as so deadly?
Well, both wars go back hundreds of years, centuries. 1,000 years in the case of the feud between the Shiite Muslims of Iran, Persia, and the Sunni Muslims of Iraq and other Arab countries. The Jewish-Arab conflict is as old as civilization, and in effect, so is this Muslim conflict between the Iraqis and Iran, as old as their civilization, at least. And they're full of religious passions, they're full of ethnic family quarrels, and it makes them, one generation passes the war on to another. In the same way you pass on a family heirloom, you pass on the family hatred.
And what about oil as a cause?
Oil, well, the lethal combination in the Persian Gulf, Dan, is oil, arms, and Islam. The Persian Gulf is a region of the world which produces 60% of the world's oil and generates half of the cash which flows into the world's markets. And both of these wars are being fought on separate fronts of the Persian Gulf. The Israeli-Palestinian war in the south and west, and the Iraqi-Iranian war in the north and west. So the Persian Gulf, this tense, Balkan-like area ringed by fire, now finds itself with wars on both fronts. If the Iranians win, which I think most people believe they will now, they're very likely to push on 13 to 14 miles into Iraqi territory. That's going to increase the antagonisms. But the real problem that the world has to worry about is that the Ayatollah is quite serious about promoting, if not a military move in the Arab oil states, which have been supporting Iraqi, at least an Islamic spiritual subversion that will try to foment trouble for the Arab oil states among the Shiite fundamentalist Muslim populations which live there. And this creates a very volatile situation of which the Soviet Union could be the chief beneficiary.
We're just going to say, excuse me, Bill, but it strikes me that the Soviet Union, at least short run, is, whatever happens, the beneficiary in both of these wars.
I think that's true, Dan. The Soviet Union has been backing Iraqi, but they've been playing a devious game in sending arms to Iran as well. And when I was in Tehran, you can see evidence of new commercial contacts between the Soviet Union and the government of Iran. Iran is bartering some of its oil for communist bloc aid. The fact of the matter is the Soviet Union is close to that region and has more leverage than we do. We have very little leverage now with Israel, and we have no leverage with the Khomeini in Iran. So here you have this very explosive region of the world where the United States, with a lot of interest because of the oil and strategic considerations, having a very, very little leverage at the moment.
Thank you very much, Bill Moyers in West Germany. At least 4 wars with potentially far-reaching consequences for the United States are being waged tonight. The 2 we have concentrated on in this broadcast, Israel's invasion of Lebanon and Iraq's fight with Iran, plus 2 we haven't mentioned, the battle for the Falkland Islands, and the Soviets' ongoing war for Afghanistan. All four are reminders, as if we needed any more, that the world is a dangerous neighborhood. Dan Rather for CBS News, reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Television 5. There's a commitment here, a commitment to excellence, where excellence is a tradition. Excellence in entertainment, information, community service, news. News has no end, only beginnings. Beginnings that can start here, here, or here. And when news has no respect for time, distance, or even the elements, among the uncertainties, one thing remains: the tradition of excellence on Television 5. We move first, faster than anyone else. We're there, listening to those who speak out, speaking up for those who don't or can't. Putting you first takes a certain sensitivity. News people who get to the heart of the story. News people like Chris Clark and the Eyewitness News team. A tradition of leadership and excellence you won't find anywhere else. Be part of the tradition. Reach for Television 5.
This has been a CBS News special report. War on two fronts. This is CBS.
If you're injured in an automobile, on the job, in a fire, by medical malpractice, before you settle your case, talk to a lawyer. Whether it's a small injury involving less than $500 or a major injury or even a fatality, the legal clinic of Bart Durham is ready to assist you. No charge for consultation. No payment of attorney fee is due until sufficient money is collected from the person sued. Call today.
A tradition of excellence continues on Television 5. It takes a certain